And the way he set this up, again, there's no possibility of attaching this miracle to anything other than his words, right? He laid it out perfectly. So there was no possibility of attaching this miracle to anything other than his will and the Father's will, the way he prayed, with perfect agreement. Nobody can create but God. This resurrection comes as an immediate response to his words. He says two things: Lazarus, and come forth. And the miracle happens. Unparalleled power. So much power. He will raise all the dead of all the ages, of all human history at one time in the future. Can you imagine that moment? I can't even imagine. Now, picture this scene in your mind. The tomb, the cave, the stones rolled away. All these people are around with this loud, unbelievable preacher's voice. He says, Lazarus, come forth. They already know all the miracles he's done. Can you imagine the pounding hearts of the people at that moment? Can you picture all those people? Immediately after Jesus gives that command of come forth, they're stretching their necks to look into the darkness of that tomb, waiting to know what is fixing to happen. And then verse 44, the man who died came forth. Talk about an understatement. It's just the Bible, man. So matter of fact, so simple, so straightforward. But this is God who's doing this, and guess what? For him, resurrection is easy. The man who died came out of that tomb. On the practical level, it wasn't easy for him to come out. But it's incredible to think about that all at once he was hit with life. The power of creation suddenly and in an instant surged in his body. But he had the power to be exactly where he needed to be at that moment he came out. Because at that moment, the grave had been plundered. The king of terrors yielded up its lawful captive. We could say with Paul, "O grave, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" Captivity at that moment for Lazarus was led captive, and Jesus is standing there as the conqueror of sin and death. Revelation 1 says he has the keys to death and Hades. And one day he will unlock it for every person. So Lazarus comes out. And he's all wrapped up like the mummy. Maybe each leg was wrapped separate so, he could move. I don't know. And the people are standing there seeing this. And they had to be absolutely stunned out of their minds as this package is standing in the door. I'm sure some of them were frightened out of their minds. And Jesus says lastly in verse 44, "Unbind him and let him go." No explanation of anything, because there didn't need to be an explanation of anything, right? But it would have been interesting to volunteer for that assignment, right? To be the first one to unwrap and see what was up under there. I mean, that would have been interesting. Somebody had to do it. And remember, Jesus used people to do what people can do after He's done what only He can do. He uses us to get the gospel message out. And then He does what He can do, only He can do. Now, just a quick preview of what happened next, verse 45. Therefore, many of the Jews who came